Welcome back to episode number 6 of Seattle Sports Scene. On today's episode, after a little bit of a break, we will be returning to talking about your favorite Seattle sports teams. We are going to do a brief overview of every team and kind of what's went on in the last month since we've last recorded, and then finish with a bunch of listener questions that you guys have submitted to us. Let's get into it.
A drive deep to right field, down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1.
Drops back. He's going to throw down the middle. He's got a man. The ball is caught.
Game over,
It is a
baby.
touchdown. The game is over.
With a shot blocked. Everly in front for Schwartz. They score! Hey, hey! What do you say? Ground early. Now the cross out to Nord. What a save by Fry!
Seattle sports fans, what's going on? We are back for another episode of the Seattle Sports Scene, episode number 6. It has been a hot minute since we've been recording episodes. A lot of personal life stuff going on between school and work and just family and everything. So we're super excited to be back. It's a little bit of an interesting spot for each of our teams to be in right now. We got a lot to unpack this episode, So this episode's going to be a little bit different. Normally we have a whole structure and everything that we go through about statistics and what we want to talk about with each team. But for this episode, we're kind of going to go through each team and just kind of chat, give our own personal thoughts, our own personal opinions on how the team's doing, maybe what we think they should be doing, and maybe what they're not doing that they should be. And then we got a bunch of listener questions for you guys. You all went crazy in the last couple weeks sending in questions to us. So we're super excited to answer those at the end. But I'll take this time to introduce the man, the myth himself, Seattle Sports Season, who is back in his home state of Washington. How's it feel to be back with the sane people, my friend?
It's great to be back, man. Yeah, it's just been super busy with finals and everything, finishing up the semester for school. Also, happy holidays to everybody recording this on December 21st. So everybody that's celebrating the holidays and just enjoying the upcoming break. For those of you guys that are in school, just so super happy to be back in the state of Washington. It's been a minute, but
It has.
there's all sorts of stuff to talk about in this one. And so I'm just kind of going to get us started with the Sounders briefly here before we look at the other teams. The Sounders, since we last recorded, they played the Galaxy. They ended up getting eliminated by the Galaxy in the Western Conference the Western Conference Finals, semifinals for MLS Cup. But it was kind of a blood game. But since then, because the Galaxy went on to win MLS Cup, the Sounders actually did end up qualifying for CONCACAF Champions League, which is a big deal. So we will be in 5 tournaments next year, which is kind of crazy to think about. We'll be playing in the U.S. Open Cup. We will be playing in the MLS, obviously, for league play. We will be playing in the Leagues Cup. We will be playing in CONCACAF Champions League, and we will be playing in the Club World Cup. All of those games going to be in a 10-month period between February to November. So it's going to be a busy, busy year for the Sounders, but I am so excited because there's just so much opportunity for this team to get out there and just prove themselves. And really, besides Club World Cup, where you really don't have any expectation except that you're happy that you're there, you have a chance to prove yourself in 4 really big tournaments to see, kind of reevaluate where you are against the rest of the North American soccer clubs. So I'm super excited. That being said, playing in this many tournaments and especially this caliber, we need to go out and sign some guys because much like the Mariners, which we'll get to later, the Sounders haven't done much. We've sold actually a lot of our international player spots to other teams in exchange for cash. We did announce either yesterday or this morning, it might have been this morning, that we re-signed João Paulo. So that was a big deal for us. It's reported that we're still in the process of re-signing Rusnak, which I think is something that we absolutely have to do. But then we've been rumored with a few different strikers, a few different forwards, mostly from MLS clubs, though. not a lot of rumors from outside the MLS. Um, but really, we saw a few players from the Defiance get a first team contract, which is exciting for those players. But ultimately, those guys aren't really going to be difference makers in their first year up with the first team club. So I'm kind of anxious to see what the Sounders are going to do. I really hope that they go out and start spending some money because this is arguably the biggest year ever for Sounders soccer to be able to go out and prove themselves. So I'm excited. I actually just got my tickets to the game against Atletico Madrid in Seattle for the Club World Cup a few days ago. I'm going to hope to get tickets to one of the other two matchups as well. I haven't quite decided yet, but I'm so excited. Like, this is going to be an amazing year. If you're here listening to to Mariners news, Kraken news, like, get out to a few Sounders games this year and like just embrace the atmosphere because there's going to be some huge games that are being played in Seattle, and really just be preparation for the World Cup, which comes here next year in 2026. So a lot of exciting stuff going on with the Sounders.
And as somebody who doesn't watch Sounders soccer very much and has only been to one game, Sounders fans are very fun, very friendly, very welcoming people. Really, I'm not going to always say to opposing fans because that wouldn't be me, but as somebody who doesn't watch soccer at all, really, and knows very little about it, I've gone to a few games, I've met some fans, and they're all very great about teaching you how the game works and the team's history, and they're very proud to show what the team has to offer, and they're loud fans too, much like the Seahawks. Maybe not that loud, but in terms of in passion and energy, they are loud fans.
Yeah, if you want a good experience, maybe if you want to just dive straight into the deep end, you can usually get tickets to sit in the ECH, which is the supporters section for the Sounders down there behind the goal. So if you want to just jump right into it, go ahead. You can get a ticket there for like $30. Just show up and they'll teach you everything you need to know down there. It's a really fun environment. They're always waving flags. They got drums. It's a party to be down there with those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. It's gonna be something fun to watch, whether I'm watching from the TV or whether I'm at the games themselves. I might try to go to one myself, which would be awesome. So I'm excited. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, just like I guess we haven't really talked about this. They did announce the the schedule for the Sounders for the Club World Cup since the last time we recorded. So the Sounders will be playing at home against PSG. They'll be playing at home against Atletico Madrid and Botafogo. I'm pretty sure is how you say. They're the top team out of Brazil. So the Sounders basically got drawn into the group of death. Um, Basically the hardest group for the tournament. However, it didn't really matter who we got drawn in with. It was going to be tough either way. But if you're just a fan, you want to go out there and just experience. Like PSG is going to be bringing their first team. Like this isn't just like a friendly where they're going to be rolling out. Like they care about winning this tournament too. So if you want to go watch some like top end soccer in Seattle this summer, make your way out there. And for it's like $100. Like it's expensive, but to watch that team in this environment, like it's not that bad considering what you would pay to watch them over in Europe. So get out there, show your support for the Sounders, and just take in some good entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the ticket pricing, like it is a lot, but you're getting it's a lot to go see a historical matchup, whereas that's about as much as it costs to go see a regular season game at a Kraken game, and it's about
Hmm.
a little over half of what it costs to go watch the Seahawks in a regular season game. And I don't know. I think it's pretty fair to spend that price to go watch a very historical matchups for the Sounders.
Yeah, for sure. I was really surprised with. I thought FIFA was going to run those
Oh
tickets
yeah.
up, and I logged on Tuesday morning. And I was like, wow, I'm actually very surprised. Like, this is affordable for the regular person and to watch the caliber of soccer that you're going to get to watch. I
Yep.
was really surprised because normally it's not FIFA's reputation. They like to make their money. So, as we saw with them just gifting Inter Miami a spot in the tournament for winning the supporter shield or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. don't get me started on Miami getting in the Club World Cup.
So how I know we're pretty far away from when this is all going to be starting. We could be looking at a pretty different team for the Sounders, but realistically, what's the Sounders like? What are the odds that they actually do well in this tournament?
The Club World Cup?
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna get destroyed. Like, there's not really any there's no expectation whatsoever. And any fan that does have expectation is just out of touch with how the greater soccer food chain works. Like, these are some of the highest rated clubs with the highest rated players in the entire world. Like, I'm pretty sure Atletico Madrid is currently sitting at second place, only behind Barca and stand in their table. PSG is basically winning the French league every year. Like, we do not stand any sort of chance versus these guys. And like, but it's just such an honor to be here. Like, being one of only two MLS teams to make it, being the only MLS team that legitimately qualified, getting a chance to host it for your fans in your city, just to give your fans that experience is something that, like, you can make a lot of new fans through this,
Mm-hmm.
and you really have a chance to put yourself on the map. Like, if you're probably not going to win a game, but if you can go out there, this is such a huge opportunity for our players. Like, there's going to be so many eyes on these games, so many scouts. If you're like a player like Georgie, or like, I don't know, even like Reed Baker Whiting, like some of these young guys that the Sounders have developed in their academy, they've never really gotten a chance to play on a national scale for any of their national teams. They don't really get an opportunity to ever get shown. Like, you get to match up against the best of the best, even experienced guys like maybe like Nuhu, or like some of these other guys on the Sounders. It's a huge opportunity for them to prove to these clubs and to the world that, like, the MLS, we have good players. Like, even Jordan Morris, he had a brief stint in Europe, unfortunately, before he tore his ACL. Like, these guys are still playing for so much more than just trying to win these games. Like, so much more is at stake. You're probably not going to be competitive, but there's going to be an opportunity there to prove what these guys are made of. And hopefully, like, as a Sounders fan, obviously, I never want our players to leave our team. But as a fan of our players and of our development academy, like, there's a huge opportunity here for us to like show off what we've developed, and then hopefully those players get a chance to go live out their dreams playing in Europe or in a different country. So a lot's at stake in this tournament, even if it's not going to be competing for the trophy.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that does definitely put an interesting perspective on it. But even still, like we both said, I'm looking forward to it. It should be really fun to watch this level of soccer being played, even if it means your team's getting destroyed. So, anything else about the Sounders before we move on to talk about, honestly,
No,
probably the most.
except
Go ahead. Go ahead.
just a final goodbye to Rui Diaz, one of the all-time
Yes.
greatest players that we've ever seen for this club. After losing Ladero last year and Rui Diaz this year, um, honestly, nothing but respect to the both of them. Like, Rui Diaz was, I think he's the all-time club goal scorer. I feel like a fake fan not knowing that, but like, he was one of the most dominant strikers in MLS for a few years there, and it just felt like anytime he touched the ball, he had a chance to make something special happen. I like few goals that you just remember. Like, I remember the 40-yarder that he put in against Austin FC, where we won the game 1-0. He just one touch off the chest, 40 yards, catches the keeper sleeping, puts it over his head, and it's just like moments like that were so special. And I hope him nothing but the best. I hope he finds another team to go play for. Unfortunately, it was time for his run here in Seattle to be over, as he wasn't really playing much last season coming off the bench. But wish nothing but the best for him, and he's going to be an all-time club great. So thank you, Rui Diaz. I love him. He reposted my thank you on Instagram, so I was really happy with that. Just a great guy who loves Seattle, loved the team, and I hope nothing but the best for him in his future.
Yeah. Legendary player. I thought that was awesome that he reposted your post. You sent that to me, and I was like, dude, there's no shot. There's no way. That's incredible. All right, well, I guess we'll move on now to a team that we don't really know if the owners and management are alive right now. We still don't have any confirmation on that, but our Seattle Mariners are in free agency right now, and it seems like the team still thinks it's off season right now, or maybe the playoffs are still happening because they have done jack diddly squat and have done absolutely nothing to improve this team with a wide open division right now. And unfortunately, now you have some division opponents who are starting to sign some players. Even if it's teams like the A's who have not been good recently, or good for a while, really, you're making no moves to make anything better happen with your team, while the rest of your division is starting to do that. So, what's going on with the Mariners? What are your thoughts? Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Man, I'm starting to lose it with the Mariners, quite frankly. And a lot of you guys that DM me frequently, or you're in the group chats with us, let me read off to you the current roster according to Fangraphs for the Mariners for this upcoming season. I'm just going to let you ponder on it for a minute. And this is not my preference. This is just who they have starting based off of their metrics. Leadoff, Victor Robles. Second, Julio. Third, Cal. Fourth, Randy. Fine. That's great. Fifth,
all right.
Luke Raley.
It's a good start.
Sixth, Mitch Haniger. Seventh, J.P. Crawford. Eighth, Dylan Moore. Ninth, Ryan Bliss. If one of those guys get hurt, your current bench is looking like Mitch Garver, Tyler Locklear, Austin Shenton, Dominic Canzone. That's your team right now. Straight up. Right now, opening day,
they passed up.
your infield is Luke Raley, Dylan Moore, Ryan Bliss, and J.P. Crawford, which Mitch Haniger at DH.
They've passed up some first base opportunities in some players that have been signed recently in Josh Naylor and Carlos Santana. So I feel like that makes it pretty obvious they're either going to play Luke Raley at first, or they're going to sign Justin Turner to come play first for a year or two. My other question or even thought is this the season that they're choosing to start the young players and hope that they're ready and developed, or is this just or maybe even another question to throw out there is management giving Jerry DiPoto money to work with, or is he trying to work some Moneyball magic here like he has been apparently the last who knows how long? Like, why isn't this team making moves? Like, what are your thoughts about like why this team isn't doing anything? Why are they sitting so stale right now?
I'll give you two answers. My first answer is my genuine belief, which is I don't think that they just cared that much. Like, I don't think Jerry DiPoto has a lot of money to work with, but also he is just trying to do too much with the little amount that he has. And unfortunately, in years past, the Mariners, how they've kind of operated, even though they haven't had money, is they go out and they make the first moves. And this year, they weren't able to do that. They weren't able to get someone right off the bat for whatever reason. And as a result, in past years, once the big free agents started to fall, it was okay because we had already done our deals. Like last year, we had traded for Polanco before any of the major free agents signed. And that's kind of what I anticipated happening this year. I felt like it was a very similar structure. They started off by making a little bit of iffy decisions, just like last year we traded Kelnick. This year we let Rojas walk. And I was like, okay, they're just clearing house. They're making space. And they just haven't brought anybody in. They traded for Austin Shenton, who has about 50 career plate appearances. And last year he hit 214 with a 340 on base percentage.
Hey,
Um,
I'll give it to them. It sounds like they went out and got a player that's going to fit perfectly with the rest of the team.
yeah,
He may not help and be positive, but he's going to fit right in. It's going to be just great, you know?
yeah, and just like I mean, there's still guys out there, so this whole narrative could be changed.
Mm-hmm.
But
No, there's definitely options out there. They're not doing, we're not even hearing trade rumors except for the Japanese pitcher that's either going to go to us or the Dodgers, it sounds like. Sounds like we're the top offers right now. As the Dodgers, he'd go there for money, and if he'd come to us, um, it would be for development, and it would be to become a better pitcher. Is Sasaka his name?
yeah, Roki Sasaki. And so the interesting thing with him is actually that we can more or less offer him the same contract because there is a cap amount, if I understand correctly, of how much money teams can actually offer him because he's coming and being posted before he was supposed to be able to. And because he's coming and being posted early, he's understanding that he's going to take a significant salary cut. So
Mhm.
my understanding is that every team can basically offer him more or less the same contract, and it's basically he's just pick of the bunch. He can basically go wherever he wants. It is rumored that the Seattle Mariners are making a push, and I I don't think it's much. I think he's going to the Dodgers. Like, what
Like
do we
everyone
have that
else
the
is.
Dodgers don't have? Nothing.
No. You could argue development coaching, seeing as how the Mariners have. I'm not even going to say possibly. The Mariners have the best starting lineup in baseball right now, and you can give a lot of that credit to the coaching and development team. And that might be the only thing the Mariners have on top of everyone else. But what we don't have is we don't have the team that's going to help you with your win-loss record. And Exhibit A being Bryce Miller, and Logan Gilbert, and maybe even arguably Brian Wu and George Kirby. But Gilbert and Miller for sure having MVP seasons, but were completely overlooked because they didn't have a good win-loss record, or they didn't finish out the season as strong as they needed to because they had to get pushed to go extra innings, to throw more pitches than usual to try to keep the team in games, or they just weren't getting bats and weren't getting hits. So you got the plus side of the development, but then you also have, or the pro side, but then you also have the con, which is this team will not give your pitchers run support, or at least they're not guaranteed to very often. Whereas teams like the Dodgers, looking at their roster, are almost guaranteed going to give you run support, more than half the games of the season.
Every game you start, basically, you're guaranteed to get 3 to 4 runs with the Dodgers.
Yep, absolutely. And that gives you run support. Puts the game on your shoulders rather than you trying to just keep up with the other team so your team can somehow magically get a hit in the ninth or something. That gives you one run. And pitchers can't do that. Pitchers don't want that. So it makes the Mariners a very unlikely position for players like him to want to come play. Because that outweighs the fact of good development, unless you want to just come play in Seattle for 3 years or so and then go to another team after development training. But again, you're also not guaranteed to have the best training you can have on a team like this. So
Yeah, and so there's my first answer. Is like, I don't know if like they, I just don't know if Jerry DiPoto has enough resources to work with, and quite frankly, I hope that's the case. Because the second option that I'm thinking of is a much worse and much bigger idea, and that's the idea that people just don't want to play here, and that's based off of team culture. That's based off of communication to the front office to the manager, and communication from the manager down to the players. And that's based off of the reputation that we've built at our ballpark. That's built off the reputation we built for our team. I think there's a world out there where players just, it doesn't matter how much money Seattle offers them. I mean, to a certain extent, eventually money can make up for anything, but I think there's a world where these players just don't want to play here. Like, sure, you see Carlos Santana gets signed for, I think it was 1 year, $13 million to go play for Cleveland today. That was the best hitters ballpark in baseball last year. I don't think 1 year $13 million was the offer from the Mariners. I think you have to pay him more to get him to come play in Seattle. You see Christian Walker signs for 3 years, 60 million to go play at the short porch in Minute Maid or whatever the new name of the stadium is. I don't think that 3 years, $60 million gets Christian Walker in Seattle. And so you see these deals where you're like, the Mariners totally could have done that. But in reality, is that actually the case? Like, I don't think so. I think that these players are just not wanting to come play for us because they've seen the problems that we have year after year after year with all sorts of things. And that's the one that I'm scared of because that isn't able to be fixed by firing Jerry Dipoto, by selling the team. Those are issues that come from players talking to other players. Those are issues that come when Teoscar Hernandez comes out and says something just didn't feel right the whole time I was in Seattle. A guy that career has hit 20 plus homers every pretty much year of his career, who was an all-star this year for the Dodgers. Like, that is way more concerning to me than anything. I hope so much that it's just that Jared Dipoto isn't shelling out money on contracts because that's easy to fix. I mean, it's not easy to fix in reality, but it's easy to fix conceptually because all you have to do is sell the team and then supposedly these problems will be fixed. But this other problem, I don't know if that one just goes away. That's something that's built up over time. So I'm interested to hear your opinions on that.
Well, it makes it difficult because one of the only ways to fix that, then, if you can't sign players to come play in Seattle, is trading. And I don't think you're. Well, that's one of the only ways to fix it, not the only way. And the problem with trading is that makes it really difficult on your prospect pool because you're probably trading draft picks and prospects. And the Mariners have a very, very promising prospect pool right now that should be coming up to play in Seattle over the next couple of years. And you don't want to let go of those players unless you are going all in to win right now and be good right now for the next 1 to 5 years. But you have quotes like the 54% quote from Jerry Dipoto that almost kind of shoot that down. He's not expecting to come and win right now. He's expecting to. I don't even know. I don't even know. It just frustrates me so much it feels like with a lot of Seattle teams to be like, what are we doing? Like, what is the thought process behind? We've seen it with the Seahawks in off seasons before. We've seen it every single year with the Mariners, even before I was a fan. You can go back way, 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 way back. And the Mariners are always like, what the heck is this team doing? Why aren't they making a move? Why did they make that move? Like, even the Kraken, you're starting to feel like it right now, too. They don't make a move, and then they do make a move, and it's a very questionable move, and we'll get to that later on. I don't know. This team just frustrates me that there's no moves being made, and I really do hope it's not because of players talking, because you're right. Teoscar did talk about something fell off in that stadium. Something fell off in the city, and as a player who has a huge slump in his Seattle year and then immediately goes right back to being great, if not one of the best years that he's had in his career. That does not look good for Seattle. It does not look good for people to also see players like Julio who are good for half of the year and then he completely falls off and either finishes his year strong or just kind of quietly is average or so until the end of the year. I'm not going to go down the list and keep naming players, but there's a lot of evidence to show that Seattle's not a great place to play in, and that makes it very unattractive for people to come and play here, which is frustrating because we have really great, really loyal fans here in Seattle that are waiting for a success of any kind, and I think that playoff push may have helped a little bit with our reputation, but obviously it has not been enough as we have not been able to make any big moves. And whether that's on the team's part or on the management's part, it's really, really made this team frustrating to watch and follow. So I'm just really hoping that they do something that is notable and exciting, and not, hey, we went and grabbed this guy. That was the dude that we waited 3, 4, 5 weeks to sign, and this was him. Great. So anyway.
Yeah, and it's just like, and the thing is like we kind of like they signed Robinson Cano to a huge deal once upon a time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, people, I say this with a grain of salt as someone who hates our spending habits. It's not the fact that they don't spend money. They do spend money. Like, they gave Luis Castillo a huge extension. That's spending money. They gave Julio a huge extension. That's signing money. They went out in free agency and signed Robbie Ray to a massive contract with the former Cy Young Award winner. That's spending money. And that makes me wonder, maybe it's not the fact that they can't spend money. Maybe it's more the fact that people just don't want to play here. Like, and you can't justify overpaying somebody that much. Because, like I said earlier, there comes a certain point where you can outbuy a bad circumstance, and you kind of see that with Severino going over to play for the A's. They absolutely overpaid him, and that's because he has to go play half his games in a AAA ballpark this season and play for the A's. I can't even call them the Oakland A's anymore. They're just the A's. And so eventually you can, but that doesn't mean it's good. But then like you said, it puts you just in this really awful situation where if you can't sign guys, you get two options left: trade and develop. Trade and develop, you can't do both at the same time. You either trade your prospects for players, or you don't trade your prospects and you let them develop. You can't really, right now in the MLB, hold on to your prospects while also trading for major league talent. If you want major league talent, you have to give up your prospects. It just isn't really going to go any other way. So I think what we're kind of seeing is, like, right now, the Mariners could trade for pretty much whoever they wanted. Like, you could put together a package with our prospects to go get Vlad Guerrero Jr. And the Blue Jays, with the right package, probably say yes. However, is that a smart deal? No. You don't want to give up your whole farm system for one player.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like they are smart about how they trade. Like, they can trade Luis Castillo right now, but they're not going to do it for not the right package. And so I think what they're kind of just choosing to do here is just hold on to their prospects. They're trusting their prospects. And as frustrating as that is as a fan, I hate it. I hate it. Why can't we just sign players and develop prospects? Like, I don't know, but at least they're choosing one and not trying to do both at the same time, is what I'm trying to say. Like, eventually Cole Emerson is going to make it to the majors, and then we'll be able to see what we have in him. Um, but if you go sell the house, you trade Laz, you trade Cole, you trade Harry Ford, you trade Cole Young, you trade Celestine, you trade all Michael Arroyo for a bunch of guys that are on expiring contracts, and then you don't win this year, you're left with nothing. And so, I don't know. I'm very torn because I'm mad. I just want a team to root for that's going to be competitive. Um, and this isn't me trying to defend ownership. Like, trust me, guys, I hate Mariners ownership. I just don't know if it's 100% the fact that they aren't willing to offer people money. I think there's just a possibility that people just don't want to play here in general anymore. So, I don't know.
Let's hope and pray that's not it, because that makes even management's job a lot harder. So that would absolutely suck. We have a lot more to talk about the Mariners, but that's going to have to wait for another episode. We have a lot to talk about the Seahawks and Kraken, and we'd love to not go over too long. So we have time for your listener questions. Like I said, we have a lot of questions for this episode. So if you want to hear more Mariners stuff, obviously our off-season episode is kind of expired at this point, but there is still some good stuff in there if you want to listen. But also, if you have questions for us about the Mariners, I know we haven't talked much about them, please do message us on our Instagram page at the Seattle Sports Scene. And we would love to talk about the Mariners with you, or even if you want to submit questions about them that we can answer here and kind of fit into our rotation of things to talk about. So let's move on to our Seattle Seahawks. Last time we recorded, where were we at last time we recorded for the Seahawks? It's been a while, and my brain is. I was trying to look back at our schedule and figure out where we were, and I had a hard time figuring that out. So where were the Seahawks last time we talked?
I think it was like right before the win streak.
I think so. We were
Right
looking
after
forward
the
to
Rams game.
we were looking forward to the San Francisco game is what we were looking at. So
It was right
since we've
after the
last
bye.
recorded, yeah, yep. Since we've last recorded, the Seahawks defeated the San Francisco 49ers, the Arizona Cardinals, the New York Jets, and the Cardinals again, and had a very disappointing, very gut-punching loss to the Green Bay Packers in a 30-13 loss, and that was last week on Sunday. Tomorrow they play the Vikings, who are 12-2. That's going to be at 1:05 p.m. And they are at home, and it is the last home game of the season before going on the road to Chicago and LA to close out the season. This team confuses me right now as to how they play week to week, and you can make a case saying that the Niners, Cardinals, Jets, and Cardinals again are not actually great teams, or at least struggling teams, and that's why the Seahawks handled them just fine and then got absolutely demolished by the Packers. So, first, what are your general thoughts on the team? And afterwards, I have a couple of key players that I'd like your thoughts on specifically, and I can actually point out just a few right now so you can maybe flow into that. What are your thoughts on Geno Smith's performance since we've last talked? The running backs, that being Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, as they're kind of a package deal right now with Walker being out the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks of games. And really the kind of almost the passing of the torch of wide receiver one for JSN and Metcalf, seeing as even though he may not officially be wide receiver one, JSN is playing like he is the wide receiver one. So what are your thoughts kind of on the team and all of that right now?
I saw a lot of people overreacting, I think, in my opinion, after the Green Bay game, which
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, in my opinion, was one bad half of football. Because in the second half, the defense came out on fire. They played extremely well. I don't know. It's hard to make in-game adjustments, especially when you're the head coach and the defensive coordinator. Um,
The
and so
defense
I
only
think,
let up 10 points, and technically 7 of those 10 points came off of Sam Howell throwing a pick on the 15-yard line. So they erased that
yeah,
pick, and the defense only allows 3 points in the second half, which is really impressive.
um, agreed. And I think people are like, why didn't they make adjustments before? Adjustments don't happen that fast when you have a head coach that's looking at the offense, trying to figure out how the heck they can get the offense started, also trying to make adjustments for the defense. Um, it takes a minute. But when Coach Mike got a chance to go in at halftime, look at the film really quick, talk to his other coaches, and they made adjustments, they locked him down. And honestly, I think with Geno Smith in the game, it was a one touchdown game at a point. We were down by 6 points. Um, like it was not out of the reach for as bad as we played in the first half. Before that, we were handling teams. This defense is elite. Like since this coaching staff has gotten who they want to play their system, they've been on fire. Leonard Williams is a world beater. The secondary has looked fantastic until the Packers game for a half, where Tariq Woolen probably had his worst professional game of his entire career.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't think there's that much to worry about. Besides, I guess this is coming from someone that never had their expectations change. Like we talked about a few episodes back. Like what are your thoughts and opinions on the Seahawks this season? And I said if they make the playoffs, great, but I'm not expecting that. The Packers game was just a perfect representation of what I think the Seahawks team is, and that's just I don't think they're a contender. I never thought they were a contender. It's really nice to see good development, and it's nice to see teams that win. But this was never supposed to be a year that we're competing for the Super Bowl. And the fact of the matter is, right now you're tied for first in the NFC West. You control your own destiny if you beat the Rams and you win out. If you win out, you're in the playoffs. In 3 games left in the season, you're playing the Bears, the Rams, and the Vikings. And if you win all 3 of those, you get to be in the playoffs. And that's kind of the story here is that like the Seahawks are way ahead of where I thought they would be. Um, Geno Smith, he's a good quarterback. Like I've gone to a lot of arguments with people on my page talking about my opinions on Geno Smith. I think he's a good quarterback. He's not an elite quarterback, but he is a good quarterback. Is he deserving of contract extension? I don't think so.
No.
But is he a good quarterback that can win you football games? Absolutely. Um, I think that people who say the offensive line is the issue, but Geno Smith also has some decision making issues that have been costly in games. Throwing picks in the red zone, costly. Turning the ball over in general in the red zone, costly. Kicking field goals in the red zone, costly. And Geno Smith is not good in the red zone. So I don't know if Geno Smith is. I don't think Geno Smith's a quarterback that's capable of winning a Super Bowl. And because of that, I am of the opinion that they move on from him at the end of this contract. Um, JSN is a beast. DK is a beast. Um, JSN gets more targets because he runs in the slot. And so as a result, he kind of just has more routes that are primarily focused on getting him the ball. He's on more quick slants and checkdowns. But DK, I think, is still the best receiver on this team. His ability to go one-on-one and make people miss, um, and just win deep balls is incredible. His hands are pretty incredible. Obviously physically gifted, but JSN is right there behind him. Like JSN has learned wonders from Tyler Lockett of how to just find the soft spot in the zone and sit down. And I think that's what Tyler Lockett has been amazing at his whole career. And you can see that in JSN. The same little sort of technique. He runs the curl. He knows exactly where to plant himself. And I think that's Tyler Lockett teaching him. Um, and so JSN has learned so much from everybody. He's just inhaling information. He's obviously has all the mental gifts. And so it's something that's it's going to be interesting to watch, especially as DK's contract comes up here to see what they do with him. And then the defense, like I said, in general, they're playing insane right now. It's going to be interesting to see tomorrow because I don't think the Vikings are that good of the team. They are the 32nd ranked passing defense. They kind of just outscore everybody that they play. Obviously that's how you win football games, but they're not stopping teams from putting points on the board. And so I think the moment they run into a defense like ours where they can't put up 30 to 40 points a game, it's going to be a difficult game for them as long as our offense can take advantage. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Seahawks right now.
And if your defense can play well, even for just a half, preferably the second half, against the Vikings tomorrow, it's going to give you a very good opportunity to win that game. It sounds like Geno's going to play. He's been a full participant in practice this week, despite leaving the game last week. So happy to see that. I'm not going to go and defend Sam Howell because even though I have been a Sam Howell supporter, not necessarily saying he should be replacing Geno this year, but I have been somebody who would love to see him get some chances, possibly maybe get a start, and maybe even play next season. After seeing that performance, I'm having some second thoughts. But what I will say is I'd like to see a game in which Sam Howell has full preparation, knows he's going to go in as the starter, and a game where the offensive line plays at least how it's been playing for Geno all year, that was one of the worst performances by our O-line this season. And it makes sense. It was against one of the best teams in the league. The Packers are a legit team. Where was I going with that? Geno. If Geno can just play a clean game, not worry about any pressure on him, not worry about the fans, and if our run game can just... Again, you don't need to be that great to beat the Vikings. You just got to be average or a little bit above average to beat this team. Your defense obviously needs to kind of stand on its head, but like as long as your offense can put up enough points, this should be a game that you can win, despite the Vikings being 12-2.
Yeah.
I would love to close out the final game at home with a win because this season our home field advantage has kind of been non-existent, and some would say a little bit of a curse. As
Yeah,
we
that's
have
a
not
bigger
been good
issue for a different day.
Yeah, no, we have not been good at home this year. So really just play a clean game of football. Reduce the amount of turnovers that you take, get at least 1 or 2 on your end of the ball, and just beat the Vikings. You can do it.
Yeah. And then the running backs, really quick. The running backs have zero time. They're basically being pressured as soon as they hit the backfield. But even so, I've been really impressed from both of them this season.
Mm-hmm.
And then last thought on Geno Smith. Sacks, they say sacks is a QB stat. No, sacks is pretty much an offensive line stat when your offensive line is this bad. However, interceptions are a QB stat because at the end of the day, you don't have to throw the ball. You can take the sack. The sack doesn't end the possession. It might make it really hard, but a sack doesn't end the possession. But at the end of the day, Geno Smith has played 14 games. He has 14 touchdowns. That's awful. 1 touchdown a game.
That's terrible.
And he has 13 interceptions. He's basically averaging a touchdown and a pick every game. And that's it. That's awful. And that comes down to the quarterback and decision making. Maybe one of those was a drop, but I don't know. I find that hard to defend.
This doesn't happen for every single sack, but Geno is one of a couple of quarterbacks I can handpick out of the league right now that has put himself in the position for a sack. He's a quarterback. One thing that Sam Howell didn't do super well when he went in, but one thing that he did that I actually was happy to see and felt like a breath of fresh air is when he saw his pocket was collapsing, he left. He got out of the pocket, he scrambled, and yes, it didn't turn out to have the best result. As we can see, his throw on the run is not very great, but he got out of a collapsing pocket and tried to extend the play and give himself some more time. You know who did that I miss is Russell Wilson. I was watching the Steelers game tonight, which I want to see if they won, actually. But I was watching the Steelers game. Ooh, never mind, they got crushed. I was watching the Steelers game tonight, and on a particular play in the beginning of the game, Russ rolled out of his pocket, did his signature spin move, which he still got it, and rolled away from 2 defenders and actually stiff-armed 1 down, and then extended the play and got a beautiful throw. Nothing needs to be as beautiful as that, but I find myself screaming at the TV so often, just being like, Geno, get out of your pocket. It's collapsing. Like, you are literally spending your time watching your first read, then you panic because your second read isn't open, and your pocket's collapsing, and instead of just leaving it, you dance around in the pocket for a while and get pulled down for a sack. So, again, it's not really a quarterback stat, but I think you could make a case in arguing that the quarterback can put themselves in a bad position, which can lead to a sack. But that's been one thing about Geno that I've really hated all year long, is just he doesn't put himself in a good position a lot of the time.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm. All right, we are going a little longer on some of the things that I was planning. Again, we have more to talk about the Seahawks, and we will get to that next episode next week. The Kraken. Let's roll through the Kraken really fast. We can do some listener questions.
We can make this short. We can make this short. You know what Kraken?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's called scoring goals.
Yep, absolutely. The Kraken need to be scoring goals, and they're actually playing the Golden Knights right now, and they scored on a power play goal about 5 minutes in. So
there's absolutely no way they scored a power play goal while we were
They scored a power play goal right as we started talking about the Seahawks. They're up 1-0 right now. They're out shooting the Golden Knights. But this is the Kraken. The Kraken all season long have never had a problem with starts. minus like 1 or 2 games that you can handpick out of the season. They've never had a problem with starts. The Kraken always start strong. It's finishing. It's playing a full 60 minutes. It's giving your goaltender, Grubauer, Decord, it's giving them not just goal support, but defensive support. It's everything. So if this team can play a full 60 minutes against a very, very good Golden Knights team, if Grew can play well and if the defense can support Grew, you will win this game. Honestly, best case scenario, we probably go into overtime like 2-2 and win, in my opinion. Realistically, what's probably going to happen is we will probably give up a lead and probably lose 4-1, 4-2, something like that. But I think...
And have 2 shots on goal. 2 shots on net the entire third period.
Exactly. Get 0 offense.
Until the last 5 minutes when we maybe get them back.
Yep. And really the last big piece of news for the Kraken is we did make a trade last week, traded Will Borgen and 2 draft picks for Capo Caco, who after 1.25 games played has not panned out super duper well, but again, it's been 1 game, so you don't need to make assumptions about that yet. Capo Caco is basically the Rangers' Shane Wright. He was drafted very high overall, was supposed to be one of their top goal scorers, and kind of ended up being a pretty decent player for them. He's been good, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't panned out to be exactly what they wanted him to be for most of his career with them. So I am excited to see what he can do for this team and if he can add some more offensive firepower. Will Borgen played his first game yesterday with the Rangers and played very well. I talked to somebody who I know who is a big Rangers fan and covers them, and he said he fit very well with his defensive pairing. Had a couple of nice shots and opportunities and really just looked great on the ice. So he was telling me that the Rangers are looking for players who can be aggressive, who can possibly start some fights, who can give some hits. And I told him Will Borgen is known for being a player who's going to give hits. He's going to start fights and he's going to mouth off to players. Maybe not as much as players like Dunn and Gord, but he definitely was up there for an aggressive player. So thank you, Will Borgen, for really just being an incredible player here in Seattle. His goals may not have always been up there, even for a defenseman, but he made the right plays at the right time, especially early on in his career with us. So I wish him the best of luck in New York. It's a really good place to be. They've got good coaching, good management, and really just a good atmosphere there. All right. Again, like I said, for every other team, we got more to talk about, but we'll get to that next week. We got some questions here from you guys. Do you want to start on some fun questions, or do you want to dive into some questions specifically regarding some teams? What do you think?
I'm going to start here with a question we got on Instagram. It said, will the MLS become a top 5 league in the next 10 to 15 years? No, I don't think so, just because we're in the 30s right now, and so you don't really jump that high that often.
Is this just in the U.S. or in the world?
I think it's in the world. Even in the U.S., we're already the number 1 team in the U.S., and I believe we're the number 1 team in number 1 league in North America, because Canada doesn't really have a team, and despite the squads from Mexico winning a lot in CONCACAF Champions League, they don't necessarily win a lot when we play Leagues Cup. Leagues Cup has been pretty much dominated by MLS teams in its short existence, which, for those of you that don't know, Leagues Cup is a tournament where all the MLS teams compete against all the teams from Liga MX, the top league in Mexico, and they kind of battle it out. So, I don't know. I feel like the cap for MLS is probably like in the 10 to 15 range worldwide. We're going to continue to get players, I think, that come to the United States after their prime is over in Europe. And that's going to make our league better and bring more publicity, because basically if they finish in Europe, they can still come make a butt ton of money over here playing for the MLS. But we're never going to be that high of a league, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't find exactly where they rank right now, but it's definitely not very high. In terms of scoring, they're pretty high, but there's nothing really showing where it's ranked in terms of like popularity and such. Um, all right, I'm gonna pull out. Let's pull out one more soccer slash Sounders question here, before we move on to anything else. And this one really is specifically for you, since I haven't watched very much Sounders soccer. But is Stephen Fry a Hall of Fame goalkeeper?
Yes. And I don't really accept any other answer just because, like, I mean, he's up there in career starts, career shutouts. We've been one of the best defenses for like a few years now. Um, it's a crazy thing to think that he's never gone called up to play for national team, or he's never won MLS Goalie of the Year, or even been nominated. Like, he's pretty disrespected, but there's no reason he shouldn't be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. And even as someone with little watching little amounts of soccer, I agree. Another question that I have here is a Seahawks question. Ryan Grubb has struggled this season as an offensive coordinator, arguably. Um, if you moved on from Ryan Grubb, who would you want to replace as the OC?
And really quickly, the MLS is actually rated ninth right now. I didn't realize that we had moved up that much. But I don't think we're ever going to pass, obviously, Premier League, Italian League, German, Spain, French, Brazilian. Maybe, so I changed. Maybe our cap is like 8, 7 or 8, but I don't think we're ever going to make it to 5. That just requires us to pass leagues that have just significantly higher players. I don't know what this is based off of. Maybe this is like based off of ratings, like everything taken into consideration, but yeah, I don't think we could ever really be a top 5 league unless if we start taking young talent and playing in the United States.
Hmm.
Anyways, really, Ryan Grubb, can you repeat the question?
So the question was, Ryan Grubb is having a difficult season as an OC. Whether it's on him or on the offense, we don't fully know, but I think it's safe to say his play calling has been a little bit questionable.
Hmm.
If you were to not continue with Ryan Grubb next season, who would be your ideal hire for a replacement OC next season? Whether they're currently a coordinator, whether it's an inside promotion, or whether it's somebody who coaches a different position out of the team that you're bringing in as your offensive coordinator.
Hmm.
I think we all
That's a
know that the
difficult
obvious
one.
answer would be Ben Johnson, the Lions OC, but
Yeah, I was
he's locked
about to
down for a little
say
while. I think he's
Ben
locked
Johnson
down
would
for a
be
little while.
incredible, especially working with Mike McDonald. Having the
Oh
two of them
yeah.
on the same coaching staff. I don't know. I wouldn't bail ship on Ryan Grubb too fast, considering this is
Hmm.
his first NFL job ever. He got hired straight into being an offensive coordinator, and he had a summer to make an entire system for an entire new team to and not an entirely new system, but to adjust his system from college to the NFL.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of stuff that I've seen that I like. I think some of his play designs are really cool. Um, I think that the air raid offense that we run is honestly what you kind of need to be successful in the NFL nowadays. You don't see a lot of just ground pound running teams being competitive anymore. You kind of have to adjust. So I'm not bailing ship on Ryan Grubb quite yet.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a couple issues with his play calling at times, but I don't know if this is necessarily a massive concern. This wouldn't be my first concern for the offseason. I wouldn't put getting a new OC as my first thing to do in the offseason for the Seahawks. Um let's see. Let's throw two fun questions in here really quick. If you weren't a fan of our current teams from each league that we cover, which teams would you root for?
Let's see. So baseball, if I wasn't a Mariners fan, I mean, I don't know. I'd probably be a Padres fan. I love the Padres. The whole vibe
Yeah.
about the Padres. Their uniforms are cool. I love their city. I love San Diego. I have a weird obsession with San Diego. Just think it's an awesome city. Um, but just like the vibes in the stadium, the atmosphere is great. Their fans are great. They're dedicated. They have fun young players. They spend money. Like
Mm.
I think they're still on the West Coast, so I can root for my West Coast team. But I'd probably go Padres for baseball. NFL, if I wasn't a Seahawks fan, I'm a Bengals fan. I love the Bengals. I love Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. I also ran them as a stack in fantasy for like a few years now, so that's kind of turned me into a Bengals. But again, like their uniforms are sick. Uh, I think they're a super talented team. They're fun to root for. I love Joe Burrow in college as well.
Hmm.
Um, so I'd say Bengals for the NFL. NHL. I didn't watch much NHL before the Kraken, but if I was to choose a team, probably. I mean, obvious choice. Utah Hockey Club. Just living in Utah for most of this year.
Hmm.
I see a lot of Utah hockey stuff, so I'd probably root for them. And then if I wasn't a Sounders fan, I would probably root for Real Salt Lake as well. Just being in Seattle. I mean, living in Salt Lake for a majority of the year.
Yeah. I personally don't have one for the MLS just because I don't watch enough to really know what other teams that there are. And I have basically no exposure to it. Baseball wise, I would be a Giants fan. I grew up with some Giants family or yeah, some family who are Giants fans. And it's so nice because it's one of the only sports where a Seattle and San Francisco team or a Seattle and a California team that I have family that likes is not like a rival. Mariners and the Giants obviously are in different conferences, so that helps. If I wasn't a Kraken fan, I would be probably a Kings fan because I was a Kings fan beforehand. Not seriously, but I did like the Kings. My cousin's a Kings fan. He kind of got me into hockey. If not that, I'd probably be a Panthers fan. I do like their team and I do like their culture, and I've liked them since before they were Stanley Cup contenders. As of the last few years. Holy cow! Well, it's already happened. The Kraken gave up their lead, and they're down 2-1 now before the first has even ended. First goal was a breakaway on a line change, and the second goal was probably on Grubauer. He misplayed it, and they're down 2-1 now. So
Sounds
happened a
about
lot
right.
faster than we thought it would, but that's Kraken hockey, baby. You know. Um. Anyway, and if I wasn't a Seahawks fan, that's actually a really good question. Currently, I'd probably be a Steelers fan just because that's where Russ is, and I do still love Russell Wilson. If not that, I would say a Lions fan. I like the Lions. They're a cool team.
Yeah,
And they're fun to watch right now.
I love the Lions as well. And then my
Mm-hmm.
other one for baseball, this was kind of a joke at the end of last year, but I started just watching a lot of Nationals games.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to choose a team that wasn't on the West Coast, I'd be a Nationals fan, just because they have a lot of young, exciting players. And for some reason, I just think the Nationals are fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, they're an interesting team that's kind of on the a little bit on the up and up right now, which it'll be fun to see if they get any better from where they were last year. Let's see, trying to find. Let's do like two more questions here. I'll answer this one really quick. If you were Ron Francis, who would you be looking at to trade on the Kraken right now? The answers have been pretty obvious all year long. Will Borgen is one of those players, and as of recently, he was the top player. And so obviously he's gone. Now you have Capo Caco on the team. Um, Yanni Gord is still up there despite his performances as of late, pre-injury, which would be as of like a week ago. Was when his injury happened. Pre-injury, he was really helping the team in a lot of ways. And his fourth line pairing with Ty Cartier and Brandon Tanev was something to behold. Um, it's been it's still not been great for him, even for Brandon Tanev. I think those two are definitely players that other teams would look at and say, "Hey, they bring spunk, they bring fight, and they've both bring some veteran presence to this team, we would trade for them 100%. So I would say they're still up there. He has a really difficult no trade clause that technically could get him traded, but it's really difficult to do so. Is Andre Burakovsky? I think he's definitely up there for trading as well. Um, I would say those are your guys you're looking at. In terms of who you would trade them for, I have no idea. But I think you probably want to target teams who are trying to make a push or switch things around, like the Predators, the Rangers. No, those two teams are teams right now that are looking for a little bit of shakeup in their roster. And then teams rebuilding like the Sharks, Blackhawks, and Blue Jackets would probably be open to a trade for players like that, even if they just got them for a year, just to kind of help develop their young players who are playing with them with the team right now. Let's see. I think one more question probably for this episode will be good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's see this one. What's at this point of the NFL season? What are your current AFC and NFC championship matchups, and who is your Super Bowl matchup and winner at this point of the NFL?
I think the AFC is pretty obvious. It's going to be the Chiefs and the Bills, and I still think the Chiefs will win because Mahomes doesn't lose at Arrowhead in January. So
Mhm.
I just don't see a world where Josh Allen comes into Arrowhead and beats Mahomes with a chance to go to the Super Bowl on the line. It just doesn't happen. We've seen nothing. Every year Mahomes dominates in the playoffs. He has these seasons where he's a little iffy during the regular season. They get banged up. They still win games. Um, and people hate them for it, but I don't think Mahomes is losing. So I have the Chiefs in the AFC. And then I, I think it will probably be the Lions. I don't like any other team in the NFC. Lions, Eagles, maybe.
Mhm.
Like AFC South is trash. NFC West is trash. Like none of us are competing. None of the 8 teams in those divisions are competing. I think the Vikings are fraudulent. I think the Packers will give the Lions a good run, but they're going to be facing them in the division series, not the championship. So I'm going to go Lions, Eagles, Lions winning, and then Lions, Chiefs, Super Bowl. Toss up for me, honestly, but I don't know, man. I have such a hard time ever picking against Mahomes in February. So for me,
I
I
feel
think
like
the
it's a,
Chiefs win again. So
I feel like it's important to know that the Chiefs are 14-1, but they should be like 6-8 right now. If you really break down their games and look at how each game has gone, like they're a missed field goal and a double dong field goal and some very questionable calls and no calls away from being a 6-8 team right now. That's how it pans out, and they're 14-1. And whether you have superstition about refs and calls or not, I feel like they are not deserving of the 1 seed that they're in right now. So personally, I actually have the Chiefs going out in the first round that they play in the playoffs, even though they're in Arrowhead. I think I have them playing I think I have them playing the Ravens. And I think the Ravens can get it done in a rematch. I mean, they were an Isaiah Likely big toe away from beating the Chiefs in the first game of this season.
yeah, but
So
you
I
say that, but also the play before that play, Lamar Jackson has Zay Flowers wide open in the end zone and completely misses him. And so it's
Oh
like
yeah, that's true.
I like have this thing where people come to me all the time. They're like, Chiefs are so gifted. No, the Chiefs aren't gifted wins. Like you can get 1 or 2 lucky games per season. You don't get 8 lucky games in a season. So it's like maybe the Chiefs but like good teams find a way to win, and the Chiefs are a good team that find a way to win. It's not like these games you can't get lucky 8 times. And like, yes, do the refs make occasional bad calls? Yes. But if you look at some of these games, it's just a narrative that's being pumped out by media. Like, if you sit down and watch a Chiefs game, like, majority of the time, these games are not completely rigged. Like they beat the Texans today. That was a fine game. They straight up beat the Texans, who are a good team. They destroyed the Browns last week. They beat the Chargers. They beat like they're beating good teams. They have one of the hardest schedules in the NFL, and they're still 14-1. And I don't know. I think they're still a very very good team.
There is definitely a case to be made um, in the sense of like, even though they did get some calls, they weren't like game-ending calls. Not a lot of them were, at least, and some of them they had to get the call, and they had to go down and score a touchdown. I don't know, man. I am one of those people who does think that the Chiefs have been gifted more than 2 or 3 games this season, but
It's like
I
a
will.
blocked field goal against the Broncos. A blocked field goal isn't luck.
And
That's
no, that's
skill.
not luck. That's skill. And I'm not saying that, but they've had well more than three games this season where they've had like, really, that was the call they made on that play to get. I don't know. I don't know. You can look at the Bengals game, the Falcons game, the what other game was it? The Tampa Bay game, even the Carolina game. They almost lost to the Panthers, and they got a random PI call called at the very end that was 100% not PI. And if it was, then that means the Seahawks have been robbed all year long of calls that like that. I don't know.
I don't know if it was the Panthers game that was the PI call, because the Panthers game, Bryce Young comes down, scores a touchdown to put Carolina in front.
It was that. Was it
Well,
the Raiders
they
game?
put them to tie, and
It was.
then they come down all the way down the field. Mahomes gets a minute 46 seconds. Short pass to Travis Kelce for 8 yards. Incomplete to Xavier Worthy. DeAndre Hopkins for 7 yards and a first down. Mahomes rushes for 33 yards. He was ruled out of bounds. That call was reversed. They said that he fumbled, but he ended up fumbling out of bounds. So it's 1st and 10. They run the ball, completed for 10 yards. They clock it, and they kicked a game-winning field goal. So it's like
Yeah,
maybe previously in the game the refs were bad, but at the end of the day, they were down. Mahomes gets the ball, he drives down, they get a field goal, and they win the game. Like, I don't know.
right. Yeah, and it looks like I got the wrong game. It wasn't the Panthers game, but I don't know. I don't think that the Chiefs are a 14-1 team for sure. Um,
I will say the Bengals
I
game was iffy. The Bengals game was very iffy.
Yes, the Bengals game was iffy 100% for sure. Um, the good lord, the Golden Knights scored again. All right, I'm gonna just move that out of my peripheral vision. I don't want to see that. Um, so yeah, I have a Ravens Bills AFC Championship game with the Bills winning, and then I have a Eagles Lions Championship game with the Lions winning, and then I have the Bills beating the Lions. I could see the Lions not making it to the Super Bowl if they have a tough game against a team like the Eagles, and if Dan Campbell does his signature, I'm gonna try to do more than I should be doing. Um, and the Lions maybe fumbling, not literally fumbling, but fumbling a game where they should have won. But I don't know. I don't know. It could be very different. Or we could be surprised, and some wild card teams could absolutely show off in the playoffs and
Yeah.
take the playoffs by surprise. That would make it very interesting if some wild card teams popped up out of nowhere and just started winning. That would be
My
crazy.
last comment on the Chiefs, so we can wrap this up. But a lot of people like to point to the Chargers game from few weeks ago, and this is what I just imagine happening in the playoffs. Chargers get the ball. They go on an 8 minute and 30-second drive. It's basically the whole quarter. They defense ends up holding. They force them to kick a field goal. The Chargers go up by one. This is at Arrowhead, by the way. 4:35 left on the clock. Chiefs get the ball back. Mahomes goes incomplete, 3rd and 10, complete to Xavier Worthy for 14 yards. And then 2 yard run, 10 yard scramble, 5 yard run, 4 yard run, 2 yard pass, 2 yard run, 1 yard run, 9 yard pass for a first down, kneels it, and they kick it 31. Like, They got the ball and they kick a game-winning field goal. And so you get the ball with 4:35, two third downs on that drive, and they went 14 plays, 47 yards, 4 minutes 35 seconds to kick a game-winning field goal. Like you just can't beat these guys at Arrowhead. There's no penalties in this entire drive. They straight up get the ball, said we're gonna win this game. They drove down, they kicked the field goal. And that's exactly what I imagine sort of happening in a playoff game. Where, yeah, it's probably going to be like a 19-17 scrappy victory because these aren't the Chiefs that we've seen dominate teams in the past. But at the end of the day, the game's tied. They're down. You give Mahomes the ball. He's going to find a way to get it done.
Yeah. He definitely has some of that Mahomo magic, whether you want to call it cheating or not, or bad ref calls or what. Mahomes definitely is a great football player that can work some magic. All right, this might be one of our longest episodes that we've recorded to date, and part of that is because of the questions that you guys have sent in, which is awesome. So thank you guys so much for all the questions you sent in. We still have a lot more left over, and we will save those for the next episode that we record. We're excited to be back. It's been a while. I've missed talking with you. I've missed talking to the fans. And I miss being able to just voice my concerns and my thoughts and my excitements about all of the teams that we watch and love. So super excited to be back. Look for some activity from us this week regarding any one of our teams. Any final thoughts from you?
No.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. But until next time, we are out. Go everyone, all Seattle sports teams. Thank you guys for listening. Take care.